Welcome to the Remarketing Podcast. My name is Jerome Lewis. I'm your host for today. The Remarketing Podcast is a podcast where we talk marketing, tech, business, and leadership. We talk these things for real estate agents, real estate investors, and real estate entrepreneurs. The Remarketing Podcast has two purposes. Purpose number one, Regan, to spotlight you, your business, your service, or your product in a way that provides value to you, including market exposure and content creation. Purpose number two, to educate and inform our audience and listeners. With that, we have a special guest today. I am very excited because we care about the same thing within the same industry, real estate and technology. Regan McGee is the and chairman, and CEO of Noble. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, Noble Technologies. Yeah.
Noble Technology. He is a technology and real estate industry visionary leading Noble's charge to empower consumers and put them in the driver's seat when it comes to buying and selling residential real estate. He has 20 plus years of experience running complex organizations and has built a world class, award winning company that is positioned to disrupt the $5 trillion real estate industry. Regan is an economist and chartered investment manager by training. He is also a licensed real estate broker and a member of both Canadian Real Estate Association and the Ontario Real Estate Association. Regan earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in economics from Queen's University. Regan, welcome to the show. Tell us in your own words a little bit about you.
Thank you so much, Jerome. It's great to be here. As you said, we're interested in the same thing, so this is absolutely fantastic being here. My whole career has been in real estate investment and development. I've been in the business for 20 years, so the listeners that are investors and developers, I've obviously got a few things in common with them. 6.5 years ago, I founded a tech company, Noble, and we're fundamentally different from anybody else in the space. We're really focused on empowering consumers. And just to be clear, that doesn't mean that it's at the expense of brokers or professionals, but it does mean that that's where our focus is. So, there's some brokers that are not particularly focused on customers. They generally don't do well on our platform. The hundreds of thousands of brokers, though, that are focused on consumers do fantastically well on our platform. So, yeah, absolutely thrilled to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited because we care about the same thing and I can't wait to talk about it. So, with that, we have a list of questions. I'm going to kick those questions off. In your opinion, right, based on all of your experience, I was checking out your LinkedIn too. Very impressive. In your opinion, tell us the most important personality trait you need to have to be successful in what it is that you do.
I think this is a really easy one for me to answer. It's tenacity. It's just relentless tenacity. The attitude where I will not quit, I will succeed, and I'll do whatever it takes to succeed. Obviously, whatever it takes means within legal and ethical boundaries. But just every day there are new challenges. Some days are more challenging than others. And I think, in my experience, what differentiates successful people from those that are less successful is the ability to pick yourself up after you get knocked down and go back and fight another day. And with that type of a perspective, in my experience, it will lead to success. It's just a matter of time.
Awesome, thank you. And so, Noble, like, could you, in one or two sentences, you already told us what it is, so let me not ask that. Let me ask you, like, where did the idea and the concept come from? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it was 6.5 years ago. I was at lunch with a friend of mine. We both were working at Brookfield a long time ago together. Obviously, a big real estate company, and we were talking about changes that were coming to the industry. And I was focused on larger scale commercial projects for investors through a fund that I was running. He was focused on residential real estate, new construction as well as resale. And I mentored him. He started at Brookfield fresh out of college, and I kind of took him under my wing and helped guide him a bit. And with the changes that were coming into the space, he had just come back from Inman in New York, and he was telling me about the amazing things that the amazing technology changes that were happening in real estate. And then I started sort of asking him, just out of curiosity, if he could tell me about them, and he did. And when he was telling me about them, I started realizing that he wasn't really talking about significant changes. It was more tech and I saw a lost connection there. Is that all good? And so he wasn't really talking about the massive changes that were coming to the industry. He was more talking about these minor changes that were basically tools that enabled him to do his existing job just a little bit more easily. And I was trying to give him advice on the changes that were coming into the industry. And I told him, I said, look, there's going to be some major change that's going to come to this industry, where the whole industry will be fundamentally disrupted. And you can either be ahead of it and be very successful, or you can get left behind. And he actually asked me, he said, well, people have been talking about this major shift that's going to come to the industry, but nobody's been able to tell me anything that's actually credible in terms of what that change will look like. And he said to me, he said, Regan, if you can tell me what that change is going to look like, maybe I'll pay attention. And I was like, okay, all right, there's a challenge. And I said to him, I said, what if somebody finally puts power in the hands of the consumer? There's only one person showing up to a transaction with money, and that's the person buying the property or selling the property. And I said, what if somebody actually flips the whole industry upside down? And everybody, I'm sure listening here, knows that the primary job is it's getting deal flow, it's getting customers. If you're really good at buying and selling real estate, it doesn't matter if you have no customers. And so I said, what if somebody created a marketplace where real estate agents could compete in real time for deal flow, and it would be designed for the consumer? So the consumer would seek real data points on list to sale price ratio, average days on market, property types sold, neighborhoods sold, and property values. And the agents are competing in a real-time dynamic environment. So there's downward pressure on commission and there's upward pressure on value to the customer. I said, would that be disruptive? And is that something that you think would make you a little nervous? And he just went silent. And I said, I pressed him again. I said, what do you think if somebody did that? And he said, you don't think anyone's going to do that, do you? And literally after I left the lunch, I called my lawyers and I said, I got an idea on something I think I'm going to do. And that was 6.5 years ago.
Wow, so what I really like about that is, like, in our industry, especially amongst the agents, people get really scared, and they don't like the big companies. And one specifically is Zillow. They always talk about like how Zillow is, oh, they're this company and they're taking our business from us. And I'm kind of the opposite. I love Zillow because of what you said earlier. Like, it puts pressure, like you said, downward pressure on the commissions and upward pressure on the value. And the bottom line is that as long as people don't provide value, as long as you provide value and you're always looking to provide value to the consumer, Zillow is a tool. It's a resource for you. It's not a competitor. It's not an enemy. And people don't want to adjust to the changes that technology brings for us, and they kind of go out of business. So I admire that. I appreciate that, and I love, like, listen, they're gonna hang me at the stake, but I absolutely love Zillow because it means if I want to be successful and I want to continue in this business, I need to provide value. I can't do the same stuff over and over again.
Jerome, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Zillow is clearly a valuable tool. There are tens of millions of people that go every single month to Zillow because there's something of value there. And so realtors can either decide to use that tool and be successful with the assistance of that tool, or they can try to ignore it and stick their heads in the sand. It's like one of those solutions will work and the other one won't. And so, I mean, Zillow is just, it's one of the many tools out there. There are lots of places where agents can get deal flow, if it's whether it's buying ads or lead generation platforms, or I mean, there's countless tools out there to help agents. And if you see them as the enemy, which obviously you don't, which is why you're so successful, for the people that do see them as the enemy, they're never going to be successful. Embracing the future, embracing the technology that is important to the customers, and using that to help the customers. That's the recipe for success.
Exactly. And I have a colleague that I teach with, and she always talks about Zillow. She's like, you don't have to care about it, but this is what the consumer sees, right?
Yep.
Zillow, they became so good at marketing or ranking number one on Google. That's where all their customers go, whether the estimates are correct or not. That's what they're seeing, and we have to adjust to that. So,
Yep.
speaking of tools, we have a question. Tell us what underrated tools are indispensable for, it says job, but what you do. Give us an underrated tool that's indispensable.
Underrated.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if it's underrated or not, but I will mention a tool. So we're in 36 states. We're also across Canada. We're originally Canadian, even though we're mostly American now. I'll give a shout out to another Canadian company, Slack. Slack is extremely valuable. It's a tool that our business uses every day, and especially our company being in California and Florida and Texas and New York and Toronto, having the ability to communicate in real time with people is indispensable. So yeah, big shout out to Slack. It is a phenomenally powerful tool.
So I know you understand tech when you mention Slack. Not a lot of people know about that. So I know you know it. With that, so I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. These things happen, but I was like, for myself, I said the next question is, what's one thing about your field of expertise that almost no one agrees with you about? And that was me and Zillow. Like, I love Zillow, and I think it needs to be there because it forces us to increase value. So I pose the same question to you. What's something that one thing about your expertise that almost no one agrees with you about?
um, So, okay, this is an interesting question. It's a really interesting question because I find that I spend my time split between kind of two worlds. My company is a two-sided marketplace. Our supply side is, realtors and all professionals, and then our demand side is the customer. And both of them think that entirely different things are impossible, which is really interesting. When I'm talking to realtors, they talk about all these things that are impossible that consumers take as a given. And then when I'm talking to the customers, they take all these things are impossible that realtors think of as a given. So it's a really interesting technology. Difference. I think one of the interesting things about the world is the technology that's changing the way it's changing the world. And if I were going to say one thing that people think is impossible, um, I'd say the disruption that's already entered our industry. We're going through a fundamental disruption and a fundamental change in the industry that we're in. I think that our industry's functioned the same way basically since the late 1800s, and I think in the next 20 years it will be unrecognizable from how it is today. And so that's something that some people disagree with me on. I think a lot of people disagree with me on, but I can already see it happening. And so yeah, that would be that would be the one thing for me.
I agree with you, and I think it will happen even sooner because technology, how it like it gets exponential, and we always talk about like there is a yeah, what do you call it, an exodus of agents like each year, and I teach, so I've been teaching for a while, and I know that they are struggling with this technology situation, and the further and further it gets ahead, the more we get behind as human beings. So you got to find out a way to like get used to it. We don't want to get used to it, or we don't want to use technology, and because of that we fall behind. We're never going to catch up, but we have to learn how to use it in our best interest. We have to learn how to use it for the customers, learn how to use it for the client. And one of my biggest things is like it's even simple stuff. It's like, hey, get out there and put yourself on video, right? Address your customers and clients, use video. Like, that's a piece of technology that you can use, you can adapt. There's a stat that 80% of the buyers and consumers are watching videos, but it's like less than 80% of the agents are using video. So
Mhm.
something as simple as that could like escalate you if you utilize the technology correctly. So
Yeah, Jerome, I totally agree with you. And one of the cool things that you do is you educate people on tools that they can use to improve their business. One of the challenges I find is a lot of people are afraid of these tools. They look at them and they're afraid to actually kind of take the leap. Like you're talking about video. How many people are listening to this podcast right now that have heard that stat and they're like, "Wow, that's really interesting," but they're not going to do anything about it. You know,
yeah.
like just try it. Like don't worry about being embarrassed. Don't worry about what people in your office are going to think about you, or just do it. It's not like there's nothing holding you back.
Nothing. And so you mentioned like there's two sides of like like the consumer technology, and the same thing here. Like, I find that we have a hard time empathizing, right? And that's like, we as agents or business owners, we need to empathize. If you are a client or a customer, wouldn't you like to see somebody on video? Yes. So do the same thing so you can serve your customers and your clients, right? So
Absolutely. I mean, it builds trust, it builds a connection. It's indispensable in 2022. We've all spent the last 2.5 years on video. Like, come on, get with the times, people.
yeah, get with the times and right and get with the technology. Like, don't you want an agent that's equipped with all of this technology, right? It's overwhelming, but you can use it as you could put it in your arsenal. Don't you want somebody that's representing you and that can utilize those tools if you are a consumer? So we need to provide that same service to our,
I,
you know,
I totally agree with you. I mean, one of the things that we do is, I mean, we track everything on our platform in real time, and we analyze the data, and we build it for the customer. So somebody on our platform is looking for something or trying to do something a certain way, we adapt to it. And why do we do that? It's because it increases our conversion rates, which turns into revenue. I mean, we're a business, we're a tech company, but we're not just doing science experiments. We're real business. This impacts our bottom line, which, Jerome, I think is part of what you're getting at, right? It's if you adopt these technologies that are valuable to the customer, then it will impact your bottom line in a positive way. If you expect the customers to adapt to you're going to have a really tough time. That's not the world we live in anymore.
yes, exactly. We all want what we want when we want it, and if we could just empathize, like that's the key thing. Like empathize. What do you want? What would you like to see? Right? Your business. You came in this business. You came to serve, and that's what you should do. Empathize. See what they want. Give them what they want, and you'll be successful. So, uh, next question. Tell me, in your no, that's incorrect. Uh, Tell me about the biggest challenge you're facing currently and how you're tackling it.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, we're in such an interesting time, right? I mean, Nasdaq's down what, 23% or something year to date. Technologies, it's almost toxic for some people. I think one of the things that is good that's happening right now is I think there's essentially a shakeout of kind of tech companies that's happening where um, the years of like just empty revenue with no path to profitability and kind of no underlying fundamental business model are done. And I think that in particular the industry that we're in, there are a lot of those. Um, Not being kind of caught up in that group is something that is it's a bit of a challenge for us. We just in the capital markets, we're often kind of lumped in with some companies that, if I have the chance to explain to people how we're different, we're fundamentally different from them. But I think that technology in 2022 is, and I think correctly, the whole industry is seen as, not the whole industry, but a lot of the industry is seen as a bunch of hot air. And I think that it's a challenge for companies that are real businesses to kind of differentiate themselves. And based on kind of what I assume most listeners are here, we're all in real businesses, so I'm sure people can appreciate that. Being kind of lumped in with some of the smoke and mirror tech companies is it's a challenge, and that I think it's actually going to escalate. There were some major fines handed out earlier this month by the FTC. I think there's going to be quite a bit more. I think there are going to be some SEC actions against some real estate technology companies coming, and not having people understand that we're very different from those companies. I think it's a real challenge right now.
Yeah, and there was I believe it could have been 3 weeks ago by now. There's a company next door that they just got in a lot of trouble on, they weren't being fully transparent with their business model. So yeah, like you said, I think we'll see more and more of that.
I totally agree, and it was Open Door actually, and
Open
Open
door.
yeah, and they got hit with a fine. I think it was like 50 million or something, but it's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they've got billions of dollars a year of transactions, and on the one hand, they're telling customers, "Well, we're buying your home for market value and then reselling it," and the customers are going, "Well, how can you make money if you're buying my home and reselling it and you're paying market value? Because you're either buying it for below market value and then reselling it and making a profit, or you're never going to make any money. You're just going to be buying it and selling it for the same price, and you have a whole bunch of carrying costs and everything else. So you're actually losing money." So that's what the customer is kind of wondering. And then the shareholders are being told something entirely different, right? So I think Yeah, I think the iBuyers and some of the others in the space are. I think they're facing a real challenge, and I suspect there's going to be some major lawsuits and major class action suits, and I think there's going to be a lot of. I think there's going to be a lot of change coming to that part of the business pretty soon.
Absolutely. And jumping back a little bit, we talked about like technology and like the sphere of adapting and adjusting to it. I have to do some research and get some hard facts on this. But when I think about like the biggest companies, they're usually companies that are backed by like powerful technology. Typically,
Mm.
I would think of Google, Facebook, and even Zillow. Like usually these companies, they went so far because they utilize technology. And even like I'm licensed broker here too, and in the states, and like EXP, they shot up because of like the technology. And I think people that are trying to run away from technology are in trouble. Like I said, I have to find out some stats. You probably know more than me, because with your degree in economics and everything like that. But the biggest companies that I think about, at least on the consumer front, is like those companies, technology based or technology supported companies.
Absolutely. And if you look at a traditional business, I mean, they're making 10% margins, 20% margins. When you look at every dollar that's invested into a traditional business, if they can return 20%, 20 cents off of that dollar in a year, that's fantastic. I mean, as a tech company, our fixed costs are fairly fixed, and then everything else is variable. So it costs us a couple million a month to run the business, but then everything beyond that is variable. So it's marketing, and if when you look at scaling a business, that's something that again is fundamentally different from a tech company to a traditional business. Like a traditional real estate brokerage, for instance. Um, and I'll talk about Compass. I guess when they open up new states, they spend tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Right? They have bricks and mortar. They have managers. They pay agents to leave their brokerages and come and join Compass on multi-year contracts. It's very time consuming. It's very expensive. When we open up a new state, I mean, we get licensed, integrate the data feeds. We're ready to go. That's it. And we actually make more off of each transaction than the traditional brokerages do. So it's, yeah, which business do you want to be in? I can tell you, I spoke with the CEO of one of the biggest brokerages in the world. I don't want to give it away, but it was an interesting meeting, and he sort of said, well, this is a sort of a novelty, and none of my agents would ever be on your platform. And I wasn't expecting him to say that. And I took a bit of a risk, and I just said to him, I said, well, why don't you just put up your home for sale on my platform and see who bids on it? You might be surprised. And sure enough, within 30 seconds, he had 5 bids, and 3 of the agents were ones that worked for his brokerages. Yeah, and the funny thing is that I said to him, and he's like, "Wait, how much? And how much are you making off of this?" I mean, it's open. We make 0.5% of the property value, but we spend millions of dollars a month to get high quality deal flow. And there's, like for an agent, there's no upfront costs, there's no subscriptions. Like to pay a 0.5% success fee, and we spend all that money to get you the good deals, and we help you close them. Like it's a very low cost of doing business. But that 0.5%, it's more than he makes off of each one of those transactions. And he said to me, he said, I pay all their overhead. I've got office space for them. I've got all the lawsuits I got to deal with. And he's saying, I'm lucky if I make, 3 basis points at the end, when it's all said and done, and you're making 50. I said to him, I said, well, yeah, it's like, welcome to the new world. This is,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Could you tell us like a overview, like a high level overview on how the platform works for the agent as well as the consumer?
Yeah, for sure. So for the agent, yeah, no upfront costs, no subscriptions. You sign up with your license number, you get validated, and then you can bid on deal flow. So it doesn't cost you anything. And you'll see, for wherever you're licensed to trade, whatever property types you want to sell or represent buyers on, you'll get those deals, and you'll get notifications of, there's a house at 123 Main Street. This is the price range the seller is thinking it's going to be in. Do you want to represent this seller? And you can say like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll, charge, 4.75%. I'll include these services. And So it's really easy to use for a realtor. From the consumer side, they see the other side of that platform. So they go on, they see that agent that bid on, they put up their property. They see the agents that are bidding on their property, and they see it in real time. And again, they're not bidding to buy or sell the property; they're bidding to represent them. So for both sides, there's no cost, there's no subscriptions, there's no ads. It's totally transparent. It's totally agnostic. It's a really clear, dynamic, easy to use platform. And as I'm sure everybody else here knows, is there's nothing else in the world like it. There's nothing else that's dynamic like that. There's nothing else that's real time. There's nothing else that's serving the consumer. And some realtors might say, well, this is going to erode my commission. And yeah, I mean, realistically, you're not going to be charging 6%, but you can say, look, I'll charge 4.75, and here's why. Here's my track record. And with that 4.75, by the way, you can do 40 deals a year on my platform. And so instead of doing, I'm sure everybody here knows 80% of realtors do less than 4 transactions a year. Instead of the 4 transactions at 5 or 6%, you do 30 at 4.75. Oh, and by the way, Zillow, as we've talked about, it's a great tool, but when you're buying Zillow ads, there's no guarantees. I mean, you can spend 300 grand on Zillow ads and get nothing. You can buy leads from a lead generation platform for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and get nothing for it. You can cover a neighborhood in flyers if we want to go old school and talk about that. And there's no guarantees of anything back. On my platform, there's no risk to either side. So for the buyers and sellers, there's no risk. For the agents, there's no risk, because again, they're only paying us success fees, and we spend millions of dollars a month getting them high quality deal flow and helping them close those transactions. So for both sides, it works. That said, if an agent doesn't want to provide good quality service to the consumer, they're not going to survive on our platform, so we'll kick them off.
That's how it should be. And while you were talking, I was like, man, that is definitely disruptive. And I
Yeah.
would like to. I'm pretty sure I'm going to recommend a ton of agents over to that platform, because that's unbelievable. That is
Thank you.
absolutely unbelievable. I would like to. We got to figure out something where we talk about this in the future, because I know plenty of people that could benefit from utilizing this platform. You just show up, and as long as you provide a high quality service, you'll do fine, right?
Yep.
So that's amazing.
That's it. But that's the key, Jerome.
That's the
You
key,
got
exactly.
Yeah, you got to provide that high quality service. And one of the things that's different from us versus anyone else in the industry, we kick agents off literally every single day because they don't reply to the if a buyer or seller wants to if they book a showing to see a property and the agent doesn't show up, we kick them off our platform. If they're chasing their agent and they're like, look, I've been calling this guy for 3 days and emailing and they're not getting back to me, we kick them off our platform. Like we're there to serve agents that want to do a really good job. We serve them. The customers, we serve them. So as long as they're providing value and doing their job properly, we'll give them as much deal flow as they can handle.
So that is very disruptive
Yes.
in a good way. That is so disruptive in a good way. And I support it, because we should just be in life, we should be providing as much value as possible to people. When somebody comes to us, we should be providing as much value as possible. If you can't provide that value, then what do they call it? I forget, but you shouldn't survive if you can't provide that value. Go get another job, move to another platform or something.
I
It's all about
totally agree
value.
with you. I totally agree. I mean, this is a platform where agents that are living a life of purpose, where they want to give and provide value, do phenomenally well. It's one where the ones where they're trying to gouge customers and charge one of the amazing things is, actually, since I started this company, is I couldn't believe just how much nonsense there is in the business. Like, people are telling me, they're like, oh, my realtor gave me such a good deal. They gave me a discount, so I'm only paying 5.5%. And but I still paid like the $5,000 MLS fee, and I'm going, what are you talking about, $5,000 MLS fee? And that's honestly the most common one I hear. It's the MLS fee. I didn't know this was like a thing in our industry, that these less than honest agents go out and tell people like, oh yeah, this MLS fee. I was like, and you wouldn't believe how many times I've heard that from people. I'm like, that's not a thing. Like, that doesn't exist. Like, your agent did not give you a discount. You actually just paid like 6.75%, and your agent convinced you that you were getting a discount.
Yeah, and that's my first time ever hearing of an MLS fee. When I hear that, I'm thinking of like, that's the fee we pay. So I never
Exactly.
heard of that before. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I got one more business question, then I'll get to some personal questions, and then we can get to the closing table. So the one more business question: tell us a myth about a common myth that you hear.
About the industry.
Yeah, about what you do, your industry, the technology,
Um,
anything. Yeah.
I think wow, it's an interesting. You asked really interesting questions. I got to think about all of these. Okay, what's a common myth? I think for the customer, uh, um, a common myth with this is gonna really anger a lot of people, but I'm gonna say it anyway. A common myth is that you get what you pay for, and I think that unfortunately you don't always get what you pay for. I think some buyers and sellers, they think, well, I'm with using a realtor that's with Sotheby's or something. I'm paying 6%. I'm gonna get a first class service treatment the whole time, and that's not always the case. I think it's a really common myth in our industry, and also with some of these discount brokerages and stuff. Depending on who you get at them, you can actually get a phenomenally good experience. So I think the myth is that you get what you pay for.
I think that is a myth, especially more now because of what I learned from you today and how that technology works. So I support that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we're gonna move on to the personal questions, and then I have what I like to call bonus questions, and then we close it out, closing table. So personal questions about you. Tell us about your biggest failure and what you learned from that experience.
Wow, biggest failure. I have a long list, and I'm proud that I have a long list because if I didn't have a long list, it means that I'm not really trying, I'm not really pushing. So in my business, in my company in particular, it's a safe place to fail, and people don't get beaten up for failing. It's something that if you make the same mistake over and over again, that's a different story. But um, yeah, I think biggest failure probably would be I think spending too much money too early on an enterprise level product before I had the fundamentals working properly. We're now at a point where we're doing like thousands of transactions a month. So we're not we are enterprise now, but um, I overspent on something too early, basically, and that was a mistake. I should have focused on the fundamentals, and it caused me a lot of stress. And I wish in retrospect, I shouldn't have done it that way.
Okay, thank you. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'll tie it right back to the last question. It's okay to fail. If you fail and you sort of pick yourself up and try again, I think there's nothing more honorable than that. I think sitting on the sidelines and watching life pass you by, I think that's something people should be a little bit embarrassed about. When I was 18, I didn't understand that. Um, I thought there was some sort of embarrassment that came with failure. Um, there isn't any, and like I said earlier, if you're not failing, it means you're not trying hard enough. Everybody fails. The small failures help you win the bigger battles. And so
I
yeah,
agree. 100%. There's to go back to the video topic. I always, because people are so, I don't want to look silly, I don't want to fail. I always share my mistakes. I still make mistakes to this day, and I've been doing videos for like 3 years, and I still fail. It's like actually I like to share those so people can see, and they laugh at them. They get the most engagement. So it's like exactly what you said. If you're not failing, you're not trying.
I,
So
yeah, I remember reading a book when I was 18 on perfectionism, and it was funny. My mom gave it to me, and I still remember kind of looking at it. I was like, "Really, perfectionism, like me?" And it was one of those books that I'm 42 now, and I read it when I was 18, and I still remember it so clearly. And it was one of those books that changed my life. And yeah, Jerome, I couldn't agree with you more.
if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Um, I would like to be remembered as someone that helped change the biggest industry in the world for the better. We are in all of us listening, here today. We're in the biggest asset class in the world, biggest industry in the world. Um, we all have the ability to help people with what we do, and I would like to be remembered as someone who actually made it better and helped people. That's what I'd really love to be remembered for.
Thank you. So next we're gonna move on to the bonus questions, and they're like made to stomp you, kind of. So be prepared. All right. Tell me, What is the biggest? No, that's incorrect. How can someone add immediate value to you or your business?
Wow, that is, you weren't kidding. um, honest feedback. It's
Honest
so
feedback.
rare to get honest feedback. I feel like it's something that so many people are kind of afraid to give, and I'm so grateful when I get it. So yeah, honest feedback, brutally honest feedback.
Thank you. When I teach or when I offer stuff, I always ask for people like testimonials, but I always say honest feedback. Tell me the truth. Tell me
Yeah.
exactly what it is, how you perceived it. You won't hurt my feelings. Just give it to me so I can know how I can improve for the next time or the next person, next consumer. So
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's part of coming, what it, what it means to live a life of purpose, right? Like, because you want to be better. And some people don't want to hear it because they don't want to be better. And so yeah, I think it's so rare and so valuable. And I appreciate it so much. It's funny sometimes when people, they start by apologizing to me because they're going to give me honest feedback. I'm like, no, I'm so grateful for this. Trust me. Thank you for this.
yes, I
And
really appreciate it. Exactly.
yeah.
Thank you. So next question is very similar, but this time, how can someone add long-term value to you or your business?
Hmm. Um, long-term value. Um, Interesting. I guess, be a partner, help me change the world, help me, be a part of it, be supportive, let's make this whole industry better. That would be, it'd be being a long-term partner. That would be, yeah, that'd be it. These are tough questions though. They're definitely designed to stump, and I like it.
Yeah, and so they're designed to stomp, and they're also like I have a selfish play in there. I want to figure out how I could best serve too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide some honest feedback, and to be honest, it's like this has been one of the best interviews I had so far. So I'll probably get with you and write up like a guest or a testimonial, something. I just want to provide that. That's how I can add that immediate value because this has been
Wow.
great. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. The All right, so this next question, we got three more questions. I'm gonna let you go. So the next question, I want to know, like this wasn't on a list, but I want to know, like you have a lot of expertise. I want to know three books you recommend to the audience and why. Why you picked those three books.
Wow, interesting. Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell, classic. Um, it's one of those ones that really resonated with me. Um, it it's so funny that, it's broken out into like almost like multiple books in one book, where each one's kind of talking about a specific kind of area. And um, and for anyone who has read it, like, I'm sure you have your 10,000 hours in real estate, and it just talks about expertise and challenging the status quo, and how outliers are very successful, but they're often rejected by the industries that they're sort of leading. And so I think Outliers was that was a book that really resonated with me. I'll go for another classic, Awaken the Giant Within, Anthony Robbins. I had some serious health issues almost 10 years ago. And it was actually one of my physiotherapists who recommended that book for me. And it was one of those books that at the time, it just really landed for me. And I think it's a classic for a reason. I think it's not all just a bunch of empty hype. There's a lot of really good substance in it. Um, and then the third one, this will be a real curveball. It's called Happiness, and it's by a Buddhist monk named Matthew Ricard. And it's actually it's all about how it's all about um, about how happiness doesn't have to come from materiality, and it comes from within. And so yeah, interesting. I wasn't expecting to ask that at all, but I feel like I've come up with three that I'm actually really proud of that I came up with on the spot that are all really good books.
Well, you added some of value to me because I never read Outliers, and but it makes sense on why you are like the technology, what you do is disruptive, like your attitude. Like I just love your attitude. I love your energy. It's like, look, I'm gonna disrupt this. I'm providing value to these customers, consumers. This is what I'm doing. And you're an
Yeah.
outlier, and some people might not agree with that. Oh, they're just cutting me down my commission. Look, provide value. So it makes absolute sense. And I'm going to pick up that book today. Like as soon as we get off, I want to pick that up because I have some issues with that too. Like I'm an outlier because I'm disrupting and going against status quo. So I really appreciate that. And then I'm gonna take it easy on you. I'm not gonna ask that last question. Actually, let me ask it. What's one question you wish I had asked you, and how would you have answered? It's not a tough question.
No, I think you asked really good ones. So it is tough actually, because I feel like you've
Okay.
asked really interesting questions. Um, yeah, I feel like you got at the why, which is so important for me. Um, I don't like to just know data and facts. I like to know the why behind them, and I feel like you really got at that, and I'm glad that you did. So um, I kind of answered the opposite of your question.
No, that's okay. That's a good enough answer.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
awesome. I appreciate that. Where can so we got the final question, the last questions. That's it's called the closing table, right? Because we're in real estate. So the last question at the closing table: where can listeners find out more about you online?
Noble.com, nobul.com. Yeah, check it out. You can Google me, Regan McGee, REGANMCGEE. And most of it will be true. I think though this interview is probably the best the best way to get to know me, because on other interviews I've done, it's they're very focused on like specific trends in the industry, or very specific things in technology and stuff. And this is actually the first interview I've ever done where it was really kind of asking me probing questions about myself. So I don't think there's anywhere better to find it out than anything about me than right here.
Okay, I appreciate that. And this, I just now start incorporating this, and it's not really a question. Could you, if you had to leave us with one, usually people leave, they like give us a closing statement. So I got this from another guest that was on. She was like, one closing word. Her name was Dwan. She said, give me a closing word. So give me a closing word. You can't explain it. Like, what's one word you would give us to leave us with?
Relentless.
Relentless. Okay, I like it. I should have known. Thank you so much. This was one of my favorite interviews yet. Thank you so much, Regan. I really appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciated
Absolutely.
this.
Absolutely. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.